This is my Ranger puzzle box, 3 puzzle box. I'm going to talk a little bit about using a box gadget creator, box joint gadget creator. My material size for this is 4¼ inches is the width of the board, 48 inches in height, and the thickness is 3/8 of an inch or 0.375. Datum's in the lower left corner. So once you do that, you've got it set up to that point, and then you come over to the gadget maker and you go down here to your box creator. And this is where you set the width, the depth, and the height, and then the joint width. And the allowances I would put in there uh, 0.101. I was using 0.0006, and it found it a little tight, so I went with a 0.1, and that gives it allowance on all the box joints so that it'll come together without a whole lot of fuss. The tool that we're going to be using is an end mill 1/8 inch cutter. I'll be using the square tabs and a tab lid. Go down here to the bottom, click OK, and that will create these pieces right here. Now it may have it spread out to the sides or whatever. If it tells you that it comes up with there, just make your material a little wider and it'll come up. But basically this has created these box joints to make this box of that size. And this gadget is a sweet tool. It works real well. And let's look at the tool paths for that just real quick. These are your tool paths. When you go to set that up, what I do is go a little bit thicker than the material that I'm cutting through, uh, which is just a little bit more than 3/8. Be sure and make sure that you cut through your pieces because you don't want it to be sanding all those joints. And since it's 3/8, I'm going to do it in 3 passes with 1/8 inch of end mill, cutting on the vectors. Tabs, these are the green little tabs that I've added, and all my tabs are on the outside edges of the box so that it'd be easy to clean up and trim out. And then I do turn off the ramps, that kind of thing, so that it works out pretty good. And we'll go down through here and we'll calculate that. And of course, it's telling you that it's going to cut through the material, so it's done. It's calculated that. And then once it's done all that, you can do the preview if you want to, and it basically is all fine and good. There's your cutout, and your box will fit together just fine. Okay, let's go on over to here, the part that we get into. That's the fun part of it, and this is the puzzle box part of it. And first off, let's zoom in out here just a little bit, and these are your different parts. This right here is a pocket toolpath. This is what this board looks like once the router's pocketed down, and that kind of thing. The rivets actually slide in this groove all the way around it, and that's what keeps the rivets are right here. So that's what keeps the box from being open. These are stacking spacers that fit in this spot right here, or they'll fit right on top of that. And then these are the rivets. This is V grooving. And all I'm doing is just using a V-bit, going through there and cleaning that up and putting like a line on it, basically is what it's doing. So it'll give it a path for a hand drill to go through there, or the drill press makes it easy to handle. These parts D right here are 2 faces. They glue together. This part here and this part, this face here and this face here, they'll glue together. And that's what I call the Rivet Keeper. This is a Forstner hole. Once these are glued, these 2 pieces are glued together and clamped and allowed to glue up, then you come back here with your Forstner and you'll find the little diamond hole here, and you'll drill your Forstners down, maybe a little more than a quarter, probably 1/4 to 3/8. You want it to be at least a 1/4 inch deep, so that when these rivets that are 1/2 inch long, they'll fit in this side, this recess, and they won't keep the box from opening that way. When they're coming out here, they'll keep the box from open. They'll look kind of like these are. But anyway, so that's that thing. This is a little breakdown on the top of the box. This is the Rivet Keeper. It's just basically like a square box, and it goes around. It's got your 2 Forstner bits, and then the 3/16 inch bit. That's a 1/2 inch Forstner, 3/16 inch bit, and that drills into that, and that's on all 4 sides of this rectangular box. And then this is again the box top and the 2 spacers we talked about earlier, and then the part there that gets the pocket in there. The crucial thing here is whenever you're putting this together, that this right here is the top of the box. This right here is right even with the top of the box, or just maybe a hair towards the top of the box or above the bottom. This will not glue in, but you'll put some screws in here to keep this in the same place. And that's the crucial part of it. This measurement right here is that's a whole critical part of that. I've also come back and put in a magnet right here, and put a magnet in up here on the top part as well. And when the two pieces get together, it just keeps it from having any slop. The magnets pull it together so that it doesn't have any slop in it. Kind of a little bit of a different idea. If you have it really fine tuned, you shouldn't need any more than your 2 spacer blocks and that cap, and it's all together. This measurement right here is 1.25 inches full, and that will make this all come out pretty good. So you could sand these edges right here all the way around to make this stick farther down in the box, and or you know, but anyway. So also, whenever you're cutting this box out, after you've glued it up and put it together, be sure and put tape on these 4 corners so that when you get your last cut in and you're cutting it on the table, so that it doesn't go wonky on you, because it'll leave a little bit of a mark, and you don't want to change this dimension. So put in like a popsicle stick or something in there to put out your saw curve, and then put some masking tape on it just to keep the box from not, getting a wonky cut on it. Anyway, that's going together pretty good. Let's talk about cutting this on a CNC machine. Like I said, I have a Shark HD 510. It'll cut 25 inches, so I'd only be able to cut about this much of it. And so with the tooling tile path, what this is this is all one board, but with the tooling tile path, we'll turn it into 3 boards. And you've got board 1, which is tile 1, board 2 is tile 2, and board 3, which is tile 3. The boards are 16 inches long. They're about the board is 4.5 inches wide, but the boards that fit inside is actually 4.25 inches. And what this does is this will create tool paths. When we create it, these 3 right here would be on tile 1. These 2 here would be on tile 2 and tile 3. And the thing is, you don't want a box joint to fit across your tiles. The reason you don't want that is because you have all these box joints on a 6-sided box. All these joints, they are all dependent on everything being perfect. And I've cut up a couple sheets of plywood, and I didn't have much luck getting a box joint. No problem on like a piece of artwork. You just have one flat plane going across there, and you're just, joining one edge, putting it in there. That's no problem. But you try and get this to fit in there, and you're just be pulling your hair out trying to get it. So what this is doing is it's putting each one of these boards or these tiles is one board, and the datum's always in the lower left-hand corner for that datum there, and then right here for this datum there. And what this does is fits in a jig box that's basically just a little bit wider than this first board. It's probably about 18 inches long, and it's got cams that sit on each side of it, and they lock the board in place. There's one on the end and one on this end, and this locks the board in place so that it can be cut and machined and go so far. What this is going to do is when you click up here and you go to save, it's going to output to tile tool paths, and the first tile will be tile 1, the second one will be tile 2, and then the third one will have all these tool paths for tile 3. And that will create these over here in that respect. Let's talk a little bit about these tool paths here. This is the rivet guides. You can see right there, and it's just a V bit. It's going to go down through there and just barely score it. I mean, we're just barely scoring it. All it's doing is putting a little pencil line there. These are the inside of the rectangles, and they're going in through there. And this is the outside of the rectangles. It's going to go through there and cut each one of them. And then this is the pocket for I call it a log block, which it'll cut that out, cut that down to that. So this thing, sometimes you can file or sand that a little bit if it doesn't quite fit just right. This is kind of the adjustable thing. This part, and this part are the adjustable parts of this to make this box fit together and work just fine. So that's those. Let's look at the file directory on here, and let's go down here to this drive. It's called a USB drive, and let's go here. This is called the Ranger Puzzle Box, and there we go here. So basically when I'm working with these files, I'll go in there and I'll save the file first. I'll just do a file save as, and I'll put it on a folder. I'll put it on a USB drive, and I'll name the folder and do the save as and put it in there. And then I keep the file that I'm working on in this directory. And then this is just a jig that I've used. It's basically just a rectangle of the over the whole block, and it allows me to just insert the boards in there with just a little bit of room, not much. And with the cams, they hold them in place. This is the picture of the block, and then the README file that you can now put inside the file itself, but it's just a little extra README file to remind me what I've done. And then the files, this is the T1 cutout tap. This is the first three parts of the box joint. The T2 cutout tap is the other three pieces of the box joint. So those are your 6 sides, so that makes the box. And then these parts are the inside of the puzzle box, and they're under tier tile 3s, and they're the 3 tool paths of that. So when I go out to the machine, I'll take the USB out there and plug it in and load up my first tier 1, my second tier 1. Then I'll do my probably I'll do the get V bit of the inside holes, and then I'll load up the 1/8 inch, and I'll probably do the lock block part, which is just a pocket. And then I'll go in here and I'll do the inside rectangle, and then I'll cut all the rectangles out with that one. So that would be the way that would be melt out. And hope this helps. We'll get on into the machining of it here in just a second. And thanks for watching. Well, we're going to make another one of these boxes out of this walnut. I've got 3 pieces here that I'm working with. This is some walnut that I cut down from trees, resawed, and let it dry out. And I'm loading up the program in the next wave, loading up the tap files and getting it set up. I've got my datum set at the very corner of the jig right there. I did move my datum over just a little bit because I didn't have my board set just the way I wanted it to. So I did shift it over 1/8 and then marked it. But everything cuts off of that now as long as I have that datum set. And I'm getting ready to Vcarve the pieces. This is just where I'm marking the drill bits where they'll drill in the sides, and mark the little spacer board that goes up on the upper rectangle at the very top. This doesn't take very long. I'm just barely going down like 2 mil. I mean, I'm just enough to make a mark that you can tell that it's cutting it. I went ahead and decided just to voice over this audio because I'm standing right here, and all you really hear is the router screaming around in there, and you can hear my voice in the background, but you don't need to listen to that stuff. Like, this thing is going in through here, and it's cutting out a V groove on these where these drill bits marks go. And I've got this set up as a Vcarve. I don't know why it's cutting so many times. I need to adjust my file so it just cuts down through there once, but it's going back on it about 3 times. I think my pins are a little bit wide, and it's trying to V-carve the bottom of it out. So if I drop my rectangles down a little bit, I think it'll work just fine. It's not cutting very deep, so that when I do drill it, it will be getting fresh wood each time, but it does mark it and gives it a pilot to go straight. So it's this thing is real tight in its requirements, and it has to be just right for it to work, otherwise it won't work. Then I'm going to the second part of the box and cutting the other part out. This all takes about 2-3 minutes to cut, and then it goes back to 0 and sets up. I'm up there V-carving the top box. And I think I'm going to carve or cut out the inner boxes now. Basically, the top part up there at the very top will set down in the bottom parts where these screws are this drill has been laid out. And so I'm over there looking at that and setting it up. I may be adjusting the Z height. I had a little trouble where my file was not quite cutting down deep enough, so I went ahead and adjusted it a couple times in it. And there you have my hand in the middle of all this while I'm lowering the foam box. It's real light, and just layer it down there. Now she's going down through there, and we're cutting the inner rectangle box out. then it goes through all those pin marks, and when it's done, it just does a nice job of it. I'm doing it on 2 passes. It goes pretty quick. It cuts that out real quick. I think each one of these boards, they're 4¼ inches wide by 16 inches. And my jig, my material width is like 4.5, but the boards that I'm using are actually 4¼ So I ripped them down and got them set up. So this thing's going around and cutting those out. Um, I did not put any tabs on this one, and just because they're rectangles and they're easy enough to sand clean, and it does a good job. Now I'm cutting out, looks like the outer box that goes around it. It's kind of like a picture frame, and that holds the inner mechanism that these puzzle boxes use. And those 2 faces that are cutting out, they'll glue together and form a way that I can put the pins in it, and it'll keep the pins at the right angle and the right height. So that's working out pretty good. I was trying to figure out a way how to make this on the CNC machine. Modified it several ways and several times. And then we're moving into cutting out the looks like the other part of the rectangle, and we'll be done with that. But both of these only took a couple minutes to get them cut out, and then I moved on into it. I think I cut them again because they weren't quite cutting out deep enough, and so just sometimes that's how it goes. If you look on that little 2 little blocks there, that little V diamond shape thing there, that's the guides on the block that are being cut out, and that allows for the drill bit to have an easy way of going through there, and it'll even if you drill it with a hand drill, it'll stay straight because it has a guide there. So trying to figure out a way of doing it. I'll probably chuck them up on the drill press and drill them with the Forstners and then the 3/16. So I'll drill it with a 1/2 inch Forstner and then a 3/16. And there we are buzzing around. We're cutting out the outer edge and going through there and getting that set up to go. And it's not very long, I think that's 3/8 material, and it's going through there cutting some 3D tabs on these. It's, I think, in the very middle you can see it go up and down, and cutting the 3D tabs so that it doesn't have to stop on the tab cut out. And it'll do the other one, so in 3 passes it passes through there and gets it cut out. Again, the 3 boards, they take about 6 minutes each, approximately, to do all the machining on the parts. So that's basically 18 minutes. Then they'll need to be glued and sanded, and then the mechanism will be put in. And I'll get into that a little bit later in the video. I will say that it's very challenging to try and get all these pieces to fit together and for the mechanism of the lock to work. Just if you move one little component, it sets the other component off because you have 2, a bottom and a top, that are interacting. And so it's kind of funny how it can just sit there and drive you crazy while it's doing that, but it does. So anyway, it's up there, and I'm cutting out the 2 little spacers that fit against the top of the box, and at the very rectangle at the very top with the V groove, these 2 little pieces will glue in there depending on which design you want it to be. The one in this drawing has got the 2 of these being used in that top part being like cut in half or a third, and it's goes down. I'm thinking about making it a little bit less than that, but then I think my box will be too small at the top. So this 1¼ inch full is probably going to be the one that I stay with. But anyway, I cut this box out and got it all together, and I just basically went over and sanded it real quick on the sander and cleaned it up real quick. And using a bandsaw, just cut the parts out, and you'll see the videos from that going in here. And it worked out real well. Cleaned up real good. I had my allowance in the box gadget about right. The parts just fit together. Just basically after you've sanded it, got all the cobs off of it, just slips in there, and it's ready to clamp up and go. It's sitting out in the garage on the table, ready to go. And it's kind of fun taking one of these and using these jigs and getting together. If you need to put it back in, you just pop it out of the jig and put it back in. There's your your little block there, and pretty soon we're going to be moving over to the sand. Right, there's a better shot of the two little boxes that they make a good drill index guide. And then I'm going to pop these up, reach back in there, and pop this thing out. So there's my parts. And I'll still be able to cut them out, no problem, on the bandsaw, and just do a real light sanding out because they're just paper thin. And I've got to cut them out anyway, so I'll load them up on the bandsaw and cut the parts out in that part there. So this part up here fits down inside of these two blocks. These two faces, this face and this face, come together to form something like this, except the inside will be open. So they'll get glued together. And then these two blocks here get glued onto the top lid and to the bottom of this. These two will fit right here on top of that. And that should give us the spacing of our block if we cut it down from the top 1.25 inches full. As always, when you're doing these jigs up, you want to keep that little panel in there cleaned out so that whenever there's any dust, you don't want all that holding you up, and it makes all your settings a little bit different. And so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time cleaning this up, but this box keeps this all from just getting all compiled up. So we're going ahead and load that piece in there and put the cams in there, and it's just a fit. It's a nice fit. Put my two cams in there, put this out on there, and give it a tap, and it'll stay there, and we'll cut it out, get the next one going. Height should be set right. The datum stays the same on this corner and this little datum hole on the marked on the jig, and we'll cut out tile 1 and tile 2 toolpath now. Okay, while the CNC machine's over there cutting out those box joints on that box, I set this bandsaw just pulled it away from the wall. Everything's on wheels. Hooked up the dust collection, hooked up the power, and as you can see on these, there's not much there. This is paper thin up here at the top. I think the easiest way is just to cut it out on a bandsaw, and I'll cut them out real quick on this thing while that thing's cutting over there. All right, a real quick clean up. These are my two parts that'll sand up. I'll sand them up real lightly, put them together. Got all of the marks on there for the drill bits where they fit, and line it up. And then this piece here gets sanded. This piece will actually fit down inside here once it's sanded. And it's a tight fit. And then there's your two spacers. So I'll sand them up, and should be about ready to do the trim, finish up on the box joint. So let's go around there cutting them out, and we'll see how we get on that one there. The final cut at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so about probably 6 minutes per board. Probably pretty much what it's set at. And I'm using quite a bit of my stock up. See how she fits over here. These two pieces here actually get into my jig just a little bit on this side. And I shifted it over just a little bit. And it seems to be staying in place, so that's good. Tier 1, tap 1 actually did its job, cut out. Go ahead and release the cams on here. Lift this thing out and see how she cut through. And that really isn't enough for me. I'm going to put it back in there and tell it to cut it again, because I don't really want to have to sand in between each one of them. So these make a difference to me. So we'll put that back in and set it up, and we'll tell it to cut through. This end right here, not too bad. That end up there, not so good. So we'll go down another fraction of an inch. And that's what's nice thing about jigs, is you can set that thing up and tell her to go to town. And what I'm going to do on this, what I'm going to do with this is just simply tell it to stop, exit, and we're going to go down to 0, 0, and that's by hit that little guy there twice and it'll go down. We're going to go down just a little bit more until it goes slow, and we're going to watch the pennant, and we're going to set that at 0, and that makes it all up, makes it all set right, and we'll cut it again. And now it's not going to cut much, but we will cut it again, and that is tap 1 and next, and okay. We'll go around there, cut that out. All right, I had just recently bought some 36-inch grit. These will make real fast work of getting everything flush, but they're too rough, too fast for those little pieces. So stepped out to a worn out 120 disc bit, and I'll clean them up real quick. I don't want to take a lot off of them, I just want to clean them up. All right, we'll see how we did. Loosen up the cams. Reach back in here and pull these out. And let's just see how good they did. Okay. I can live with that. That's pretty clean. That's just thin enough, so that's part of, there's a high spot right over there on that side there. I have to remember that. Anyway, it's went through there and cut down all of it. And there's some little tabs that were on the ends right here, and they'll clean up real quick on the outside of the boxes. So we'll bring them over here and clean them out, and I'll cut the other one while we're doing that. And looks like we need to clean out that, get the parts out. All right, let's get them chunks out of there. Those are the wide ones. The other ones are not near as wide. Get them cleaned out of there. And you notice on the floor, there's virtually no dust in there because this box keeps it cleaned up. We've got the third board in, so we'll do the other side of the box joints and get them in there. I am going to set my height down just a little bit so that it will cut through those and just a little bit more. And let's set it home to 0, and we'll put this on slow. Watch that, and we'll go down just a little bit more. Okay, we'll set our 0 a little bit more, and okay. I got a 1/4 inch of play on my tabletop. I have below my jig here, this is 1/4 inch, and below that I have a scrap. And every now and then I get down in it, but you know, I need to level it. It's been on a 1.5 years. I need to redo my top and re-level it, but I've done lots of projects on it. Okay, we're going to go down here and cut out the other sides of the box joint, walnut box. And I've set my datum down, or my Z-height down just a little bit lower. So it should cut all these out, no problem. And if I was digging up a bunch of these blocks and not doing them, I'd be right now on about home free run. So everything's going to run just about fine. I would like to move this one camo just a little bit so that it doesn't hit that one notch, and need to move it up. And I think I remembered that I need to do that on the last one. We'll get it done. All right, I cleaned the first tap file up, cleaned the edges up. This one was the one that was not quite cut out. Got it cleaned out pretty good. I did get a little wild on my cut right there, so I know that's the one because I got a little bit too deep, but sawdust fill that up. And this is finished cutting out at 5 minutes and 10 seconds. So we'll get it out of there, see how it fit, how it fared in the cutout parts, and let's see where we're at. So yeah, I cut out everything just fine. Tabs was a little bit fine on that. As long as they don't get up and move around, you're good shape. All right, we'll cut them out on the bandsaw and get them on the sander. Okay, that box went together without having to use any kind of a tap or anything on it. It's all I've got to do is just lightly sand it, and it'll go right in there, no problem. And I'll probably just end up gluing it and then rough sanding it a little bit. But that part, that allowance that I put in on this box was just about right, because it slips together just perfectly tight, and I didn't have to pound one on it. So clean it up a little bit, and by the time I put the glue in there and put the clamps on, it's going to be nice and tight. So anyway, so that's working out good. Well, I got my box cut out, and let's say just use my roughest piece of wood that I could find. Here's the other top part of it. And there's some of the roughest things in it, and knots and stuff. So I cut that. First box I cut, my quarter, I was used to using 1/4 inch, so I didn't modify it. So then I modified it for the 3/8 inch thickness, and I dry assembled it, make sure that it would all fit together. And now I'm going to glue it up and get it sanded, and then put some of the inside parts in it. When I go to putting box joints together, I use the slowest setting glue I have, and I just lay it down flat, and then coat all of my joining pieces. Just put them together and coat them, and then when they slide together, they've all got a coat of glue in them, so they're out next to each other, and the glue goes in there, and everything gets good and wet. It's a little messy, but it works good. So after going down through this thing and just tapping it with the rubber mallet, all 5 edges, and the glue getting everything, I'm going to go ahead and put the top part on, put some glue on it. It's basically pretty much dry fit. The inside of it, I'll wipe it out before I put my lid on there, and then put the lid on and get her going. Well, all right, so I just wiped it off with a damp cloth. It's still a bunch of glue on it. I've got the inside fairly clean. I'm gonna wipe it just one more time, and then I'll put some glue around the edge and put the top piece on. All right, I wiped it down. I'm gonna put some clamps on it and put all them little clamps on it, pull it tight, and then the sanding will take care of a lot of it. Like, again, this is a prototype, and it's got a lot of rough spots on it, and I figured I'd do some sanding, and this is a puzzle box. All right, she's glued up. Set her out here in the warm winter sun and let her just kind of dry up a little bit. Glue up. In my shop, it's not too bad today. It's like 60 degrees out, but the inside of the shop was probably colder than that because it was the winter time. And got a little beeswax going over here. I'm getting ready to waterproof a canteen. This is a canteen I made for one of the guys in our Royal Ranger group, and you can't see it because the light's bad, but anyway, it's solid maple and a little walnut, a little fir, and I'm getting ready to waterproof it with some beeswax. So there you go. Sorry about moving the phone around so fast. Okay, out here in a nice winter day, in January 31st, I believe it is. Got a little beeswax and finish up that canteen, and working on this Ranger puzzle box. Just got it glued up. This is my first box joint out of solid wood for using a CNC machine anyway. And then I've got to glue a couple of these pieces together for the inside of the puzzle box and drill some holes in it. All right, a few hours later, take it off there and we'll sand it up, make it pretty, and then we'll cut it 1.25 down from the top, and that ought to give us our exact measurement. Okay, the box came out pretty good. Of course, this is, like I said, this is the worst piece of wood that I had. Had some pretty good dings in it, and had some stuff in there that gives it character flaw. So this is my prototype, and but you know, hey, you put a clear coat on that thing's gonna pop. Got to cut it about 1.25 inches down from the top, and then that'll give me the places for my pins inside. Thing about little puzzle boxes like this, they can just drive you crazy. And what seems to be so simple for me is not just simple.
I had thought, anyway, I had made a little mistake in my computation, and I had made my lid deeper than what I needed it to. Of course, I could cut it down and glue that onto that side of it, which would be totally fine. And so I miscalculated the thickness. I needed to have just this one thickness down here at the bottom, and instead I have two, and then this was going to set up here on top of that, so that's not going to work that way. So I'm needing this to be down in there, and I need basically the equivalency of 4 of these to come down into that so that they will stick right there. So another way of doing it is I could put just a square block across here and do that, or I can just simply cut it down to where it's thinner and put that here so I don't waste my block. Anyway, it's all fun and games until you cut it in the wrong spot. And what I'm doing is I'm inlaying some birch on the end of that walnut to tighten up this distance between these. Whenever you got this cutting out on the CNC machine and you're trying to save wood, trying to make it out as bare minimum, you always got your saw blade that you have to worry about. So I'm taking some popsicle sticks and spacing them out, which will give it an inlay, kind of dress it up, and it'll make up the difference in that. So I'm trying to figure out a way of doing it that's easy and yet it will work. So, but yeah, I did cut my lid out too deep, wasn't thinking about it, and I need it to be thinner than that. This needs to glue in about yay deep. And then I need my lid to be just a hair thicker than flush. So we'll see what we got. All right, glue these pieces up, and this is the other part of that will get there. Right now I'm concentrating on the box joint. Right now it looks kind of rough. I'm getting ready to run it over on this 36 grit sanding belt, clean up all the joints, and then we'll cut it down the 1¼ inches full. Okay, a few minutes. Hitting this on the sander, done pretty good. I'm going to drop it down to a brand new 80 grit, let it do some finishing, then I'll go to a 120 grit, but it took it pretty well down. There's a couple little spots on it that's need a little something with it, but other than that it's pretty good. It's sharp. I haven't sanded it with anything except for this right here, so that 36 grit makes short work of it. Okay, we moved up to the 80 grit, and we'll sand this real quick and see what it looks like here in a minute. Okay, I'm about to put the portion holes everywhere that there's one of these. There's 8 of them, and the center of this portioner will go right there in between these 2 3/8 inch pieces. So I'm going to drill them down. I'll probably just about go down. I won't go the whole distance of that bit because that's almost a 1/2 inch, but not quite. And but I'll probably go down in at least 1/4 inch into that, so maybe 3/8. All right, so I've drilled the 8 holes. They're all at least 1/4 inch down deep down in there, if not a little bit more. I've got a 1/2 inch right here on all these borders right there, all 1/2 inch. So my bit's going down, and now I'm going to chuck up a 3/16 inch bit into that and drill the holes out. Alright, I about got myself not paying attention to it, but I did cut a bevel on this one edge all the way around here, just a slight bevel, so I could always check, make sure that I knew which side was running to the face of me. And because when you turn it around, sometimes you'll get it confused. And even though we're right in the center and it was set up pretty good, I just kept the same face out towards me, and that made all my holes stay pretty consistent. And now I've got these 8 holes all drilled and ready to go, and I'm ready to put some brads in there and glue that top in and see if we can get this thing to go. So there's the box. This is the lid. That's the bottom of the box. And here's this piece here. So really all I've got to do is glue that onto the top. And I can use this as a spacer right here. Set this in like right here to give me my center. I'll probably shim it and then make sure there's no glue on this piece here for sure.
Yeah, I've messed with this
And
box on and on.
we'll be good to go.
Trying to get these to work
So,
out.
let's get that done.
Layout kind of
Okay, I need a little shim to keep this from sliding down inside there. And so with the chamfered edge up, I put some little just nuts down in the corner. And then I'm going to set this on top of it. And what this does is this will keep this piece here so that it'll easily stay centered. I'm going to put some little shim in there and then glue that in there so it'll be perfectly centered in the opening, and then clamp it down. I got some little paper shims that I'm going to put in there that will sit in there, and they'll keep the distance out the same. So let me go ahead and get that done. Okay, so I've got the shims around here. This pretty much is just tight. I'm going to put some glue on the bottom side of that and glue that into the box, put a little weight on it, and we'll call that part done. Okay, what I've done here is I put some this fast cure, like a super glue, yellow glue in the middle. I'm going to shoot that with a fast activator, and it'll glue that up tight quick. Okay, I opted not use the 2P10 accelerator because I had to put these little shims in there, and that was going to make me have to move that around for about a couple minutes. So I went ahead and used the gel because that's like a 4-minute set time and 30-minute plane time. So that'll help that, plus the yellow glue will make it nice and permanent. I've done a whole project with this stuff. It's amazing. It does real good. I do have to drill that tip out, and then I clean the lid with some acetylene, or not acetylene, some acetone. Pour that down into the lid right there a little bit, and then turn the bottle upside, and that keeps the nozzles clean for the biggest part. Every now and then I do have to drill them out, but on the outside they're clean. Alright, what I'm doing here is I just took 2 pieces of plywood. This one's right at a 1/2 inch. And what I'm going to do is I'll sand these all flush with this edge. You have to watch it because you will wear this out. I don't want them to be any longer than a 1/2 inch, but I don't want them to be shorter than a 1/2 inch either. So you may have to make this jig up after you've made several of them and cut it up. But the little tapers on there, if I was to do it again, I'd have got the 3/8 inch because the taper starts and adds about 1/8 inch to it. So they're number 12 by 3/8 would be the right ones to get without having to sand them off. And when they're done, they're flush. Don't touch them; they're hotter than heck. But you do all 8 or 4 at a time and have them done pretty quick. Okay, there's 8 in there, and they're a 1/2 inch long. And I'm going to load them up into the box here and put them in. Okay, I've got the little popsicle deal with a 3/4 inch. It probably needs to be about a 7/8 inch board to make it right. The key thing is that where that 3/8 inch break fits, you want it right at the edge of this. You see where that board splits right there? You want that follow along where that glue joint is, all around along the edge. And that makes it about right. And I'm putting the screws in the sides here as a fail-safe. I don't glue that piece in just because it's wood and I'm not a machinist, and this allows me to take it apart if I need to work on it. Well, after taking it, putting it together, and giving it a try, I didn't make that pocket deep enough. Um, I need to probably think that by maybe hitting a third of that. 3/8 would be an 1/8 inch full instead of a 1/4 inch pocket. So I'm going to try and cut one to fit this. I've modified my box a couple of times by just simply cutting that top piece down a little bit, but making the pocket a little bit deeper and gluing it on there. We'll see how that works. But it's so funny how you can get something so simple. And now I've got my rivet heads where they're kind of coming out there a little bit and they're holding on to the edge of the box. So I've made my tolerance just a little bit too tight, and I think I got them the right length. They're just kind of sitting in there at a little bit of at a angle. So I'll put a little chamfer on the box just to make it where it slips in a little easier anyway. But that's easy enough to fix. So there you have it. And that's where we're at. I did modify my other one just a hair, added just a little bit of stuff on it. I'm not kidding you when we're down to 64 32nds of an inch on playing these things, and 1/8 inch is too big. You can't get it to work with an 1/8 inch. So you're down to with these pieces, they'll if they don't come out just right, they'll not work right. So if you're too short, it'll just open up. If it's too long, it won't work. So it's a fine line what you do. I am staying with this border right here where it's down 3/8 inch from the top, and just trying to build my jig off that so that I'll have a reference point on where things line up from. But like there's the joint there on that side. This side here is pretty close. I think down this side here I might be a hair under, so I might loosen that up and bring that up just a hair. Note to self, always have that joint. It's in the middle of that. Come up a hair past the bottom of this, because that's where the pavement meets the road. It needs to be up just a hair above that. Note to self, use a cordless. Don't use a cordless on the brass screws. I'll snap 2 of them off, put them in there. So don't use a cordless, use a hand, just a screwdriver, because they are not very hardy, and I'm getting tired of having to drill them out around them. Alright, so there we go. Can't wait to burn an emblem on one of them and let the boys put them to use and see what they come out to being.